Hi, I'm Jason Gore for That Shelf, and we're here to look at Seal on Blu-ray Pure Audio.
That shelf.
So the Blu-ray Pure Audio High Fidelity series has been coming out for a while now. There's a number of these. And for somebody who collected high-res audio back in the last format war, the DVD audio SACD, I could not be happier that so many of these are being not only re-released, but also they're digging into some titles that we've been wanting for decades. A lot of the Quadio stuff, the 4-channel individual releases. We've seen some spectacular stuff. There's videos on this channel, including a look at the Joni Mitchell stuff. But this one is very interesting because this actually sort of bridges the two worlds of high-res surround audio that we've had over the last, let's say, generation. And that would be, this was not too new of a record to have had a quad mix, but not too new to have a 5.1 mix. And so the original DVD audio release of this would have had the 5.1 mix done by ye old Trevor Horn, the producer of this record. Trevor Horn, as many people know, he was a member of the Buggles. He was an amazing producer. He was in Yes. Did everybody from Frankie Goes to Hollywood to obviously Seal and so much more. But really in the 80s was immaculate in terms of his production. Incredible sounds that he was actually getting in an era where it's very easy to be stereotypical about the kind of sound that you're actually getting, this very sort of clinical synth pop sound. He was able to get all of that with an incredible ear towards fidelity. And so really ambitious mixes using the newest of tools to actually create these symphonic layers, walls of sound in the best of ways, just like those in the late 60s were able to achieve in recording studios. The advent of digital, both synthesis and recording, allowed somebody like Trevor Horn to really get to the limits of what was able to be done at the time, just before digital audio workstations, and even into the early advent of things like Pro Tools. Massive track clusters, really beautiful elements in terms of production. But above all, this is a showcase of Seal's extraordinary instrument. What an incredible talent. Beautiful voice, absolutely stunning, great songwriter, very charismatic, very handsome. But the deal is, with this record, you're getting this mix of sort of synth pop, dance music, soul, R&B, all colliding all at once in this pretty phenomenal record. The next record, also titled Seal, I do have on DVD audio. I'm hoping that they release it this way because I'm hoping they've done something similar. This includes not only the stereo version of the recording, but the original 5.1 mix and the Atmos mix. And the Atmos mix, which as viewers of this channel certainly hopefully know, but in case you're new to this, the difference between a 5.1 mix is you're mixing obviously for left, center, right, and rear surround, ideally rear. And Atmos is much more conducive for those of us that actually have a full Atmos setup, which means you basically do with spatial audio is it adjusts to the number of speakers you have, including ceiling speakers. So you have left, center, right, side surrounds, rear surrounds, and then whatever speakers you have above you. I happen to have a 7, which is that 0.1, the subwoofer. So the ones I detailed, and then I have 4 as Atmos, which means when you listen to something like this, if it's been mixed in that way to actually take advantage of it, you have not only this sort of sea of wonderful surround mix on this level, but the audio space above you also has lots of either specific or ambient elements that are actually mixed in specifically for that. And to go back and forth on this release in particular between the 5.1 and the Atmos is very interesting, because frankly the 5.1 is wonderfully obnoxious. It's absolutely punching. If you listen to it in a system where you only have side surrounds, it's very overwhelming because you got this music blasting right on your side. I've mentioned it before, but I have a switch box to take that channel and reverse with my rear channel. So I'm creating essentially a quad style setup with equal speakers behind as well as in front, creating a full sort of 5.1 spectrum. And the mix sounds fantastic, but it's very punchy. It's very in your face. As opposed to the Atmos mix, which is a newer mix, is much more subtle. The mix is certainly enveloping and it's all that, but it's really not grabbing you by the throat in the same way. And in many more ways, it's musical. It's a difference in some ways between some old quad recordings where they're saying, "Hey, look at me, we're in surround," or 3D movies where they're going, "Hey, look at me, I'm doing 3D," or simply creating this textured environment. And the Atmos mix is really, really lovely and lush, and allows you with all of those speakers to actually hear the constituent parts in a way that even the 511 feels slightly claustrophobic compared to the Atmos. Because of the way this works, you just playable on any Blu-ray player. You don't need something specifically that does those weird formats, the SACD or DVD audio. Works with any Blu-ray player, and because it's an Atmos mix, it'll actually quote-unquote down-res if your receiver supports it. Not down-res, but down count the number of speakers or up count the number of speakers. In other words, if you only have 5.1.2, say, so you have a 5.1 system and 2 ceiling speakers, this will play. I have a 7.1.4. If I went crazy and did 7.1.6, the Atmos mix itself will expand to fill out that space because of the way that spatial audio tends to be mixed, even for music. Again, some of the Atmos mixes tend to be really cacophonous and not as musical, but I'm really pleased about this particular mix. I think it's a beautiful sort of articulation of what was there in the stereo mix, expanded into the Atmos system, and sense of space and the field, and really gives you the most. The 5.1 mix is great and obnoxious and fun, but certainly for me, on first listening, even something like Killer, which is such a killer track, Crazy, the big hit from this record, you're getting a lot out of the Atmos. And that's, I love that on discs like this, you have the opportunity to switch between the audio tracks very easily and very conveniently. It's phenomenal. This is exactly the kind of stuff we dreamed of in terms of having digital audio releases. And I will say, even though some of these mixes, like the Atmos mix, may be available on streaming services, something like Tidal or Apple Music, or knock on wood, I'm hoping Spotify at least adds them to their library. The fact of the matter is that the bit rate on here is so hugely more than what the crunch down that you're actually getting on streaming as of recording, that this just murders those versions. Sort of switching to similar Atmos mixes that are like almost sub 320 MP3 to all the channels, it just sounds bad, frankly. Yeah, there's a little bit of spatialization which people will enjoy. And I have a real Atmos system, let alone those that are working with, let's say, soundbars that are doing virtual Atmos, or God forbid, headphones that are doing some spatialization. You can move your head around and the music sort of stays in place. This is mixed in a studio with multiple speakers. If you're going to reproduce what was in the studio, this is by far the way to go. And I think for not only for months, but for years, this will be the highest level that you're going to get. It's the same thing with streaming movies, that you're going to get 4K off of some of the streamers, but when you actually have a UHD disc, it is so much superior. But some people can't necessarily tell the difference depending on the size of your television. I promise you, you throw this in and then you put in the sort of streaming version of the same surround mix, and it's anybody with ears is going to hear the difference between the two. This is just so extraordinary. So yeah, a beautiful celebration, a wonderful celebration of this fantastic record. This is the Seal self-titled with Atmos 5.1 and stereo mix, available, as it says, on high fidelity pure audio. Released on Warner Brothers Records. For thatshelf.com, I am Jason Gorber. Please subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you think of this. Ring the bell. Do all of that stuff. Follow us on social media. We will see you next video. All the best. Take care.